Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Jim Kirchherr. Residents in Kansas City elected a new mayor earlier this week, and here to tell us about him is Brian Ellison, a host and contributor for NPR-member station KCUR in Kansas City. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Jim. Good to be with you.
So tell me about this. We love our politics here in St. Louis. I know you do in Kansas City as well. There was a runoff race between two city council members, Quinton Lucas and Jolie Justice, and Quinton Lucas is the mayor-elect. Tell me a little bit about that particular race. What were the issues, and what is the new upcoming mayor telling Kansas City he's going to do?
Sure. Quinton Lucas was one of the two finalists to emerge from an 11-way primary election back in April. He went up against Jolie Justice, who was another council member. Both of them had just finished their first term on the council, but Jolie Justice was seen as a very experienced candidate. She had been a state senator. She actually was the Senate Democratic leader before her term ended, and she ran for city council. So Quinton Lucas had an uphill battle. He actually took second place, but only had about 15% of the vote in the primary. He came back to win 51% to 49% on Tuesday. He is a 34-year-old current constitutional law professor at KU, although it looks like he may have to give up some of his teaching gig. He served on the council as chair of its housing committee and developed a reputation as a very vocal advocate for, among other things, affordable housing and willing to criticize those in power, including Mayor Sly James, who actually endorsed his opponent.
Quinton Lucas is African-American?
He is. He's the third African-American mayor of Kansas City after now Congressman Emanuel Cleaver and the current mayor, Sly James.
He's got a good story, I understand, sort of a rags to riches. I don't know if the riches are there, but what's his story as a young man, as a kid?
That's right. Part of his story and part of his advocacy for affordable housing does come from his own childhood when he grew up, raised by a single mom, and actually an aunt and a grandmother were also part of raising him at different times. He didn't have a steady home. He was actually homeless at times. And yet he did manage to get a scholarship to attend the Barstow School, which is a pretty elite private school here in Kansas City. Ended up going to Wash U, as you may know, and then on to Cornell Law School, and has had a very different life than the one he began with as a child. That's really motivated him, as he talked about on the campaign trail quite a lot, and has identified with those who live in historically poorer and historically African-American parts of the city. So
I'm guessing, in what I'm reading as well, but it doesn't surprise anyone in St. Louis that in Kansas City, issues of crime and infrastructure, economic development, and, of course, housing, it's easy to say you're going to fix those things. So when Quinton Lucas takes office, what's he going to have to do to prove himself?
Well, I think he really does have an uphill battle to turn the many words into actions. Certainly, let's talk about housing for a moment. One of the ways that Quinton Lucas contrasted himself with his opponent in the election was by talking about the need to take immediate action and to take action that is rooted in public funding for more affordable housing. So as chair of the Housing Committee, he wasn't always entirely successful in moving policies out of that committee to the full council. Kansas City, as you know, has had a period of really remarkable growth, a lot of new areas of town that have seen business and housing development that's been quite remarkable, although a lot of it has been inequitably distributed, and a lot of it has been luxury condos. Even defining affordable housing has been a big issue in the past couple of years on the council. There were some incentives being granted for affordable housing that was defined as $1,100 a month rent, which many people pointed out was not affordable to them.
So many of the same issues that we would have in St. Louis, that certain areas are being favored and doing well, and others are not getting their fair share.
Well, that's right. And Quinton Lucas has said basically it will be an incredibly high threshold for any more development in our downtown area, our Power and Light District, the Plaza, some of the areas that are doing well to receive economic incentives, that he wants to see those economic incentives directed to places on the east side of town and other areas where there's significant financial difficulties.
So very quickly, the tenor of this particular campaign, which I'll admit I wasn't following because we've got a lot of things to follow here, but was it a nasty campaign? Are there some bridges that have to be rebuilt or not?
Maybe some, although not by Missouri political standards by and large was it a nasty campaign. There were some flyers that went out by third parties, actually directed fairly negatively against both candidates. But by and large, Jolie Justice and Quinton Lucas spoke about a lot of mutual admiration. Indeed, they didn't disagree on that many issues, frankly, when you look at their record of votes on the council. There were differences of tone, there were differences of approach. You mentioned some of the other big issues in this race. Quinton Lucas really made fighting crime an important part of his agenda, wanting to reduce Kansas City's status as one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in terms of homicide rates, and also the reining in those economic incentives we mentioned continues to be and will continue to be in the next term a significant topic of conversation in Kansas City.
Brian Ellison, he's the host and contributor at public radio station KCUR in Kansas City. Thanks for joining us, Brian.
Thank you, Jim.
This is St. Louis on the Air, St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com. Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.